So we've been talking about we've gone all through this process of Lent and Easter, and we're talking about after the Easter experience. And we're talking about these events not as some historical process, not as some singular historical event, not as something that we need to believe in, but as a common human experience. An experience reflected in all of the world's spiritual traditions. An experience of deep desolation, the desert experience, an experience of being crucified. Our past as we judge it, our future as we predict it to be, hung in this space-time continuum, and the only time that really exists, the ever-present now. How we bounce around in a body and we learn to fear. We learn that we can be hurt. We learn that trust is difficult and we can be hurt by other people, that we can get sick. We learn that we die. And that the story of the crucifixion, however you choose to view it theologically, makes no difference. The story of the crucifixion is our story. And not just the crucifixion, but the resurrection. Because more often than not, what holds us here are our own beliefs, our judgments of ourselves and other people, our fears. But if we really and truly got it, that we're intended and on purpose, that a love beyond our deepest imaginings sent us here, that we're a unique note in the one song that is the universe, and without you, the universe is incomplete. Without the authentic you, something's missing. And once we get it, really get it, not intellectually, but emotionally, that we're loved, we can come down off the cross. We don't need the drama and the suffering and the fear. And guess what happens? When we stop fearing, when we stop suffering, when we stop hurting, we stop hurting other people. Shared last week what happens after Easter. What happens after this resurrection moment that we really get it, that we're intended and on purpose, that we're loved, that we're expanded beyond our wildest imaginings, that in the image and likeness of God we're eternal, spiritual beings having a human experience. What happens to us when that becomes an emotional reality of who we are? What happens when that love breaks in on us and on our awareness like the brightest dawn you've ever seen? Last week we talked about how Jesus began appearing to his disciples, how he collected into himself all of those things, all of those experiences, all of those people that had been in his life. And if they all were in some ways put together in new ways. The butterfly, remember the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly in the cocoon, nothing is added or taken away, everything is rearranged. Today I go to another story about what happened after the resurrection. It appears just in Luke, and it runs about a paragraph, and it's the walk to Emmaus. Two disciples who aren't mentioned in the rest of the Gospels are out. They've left Jerusalem. They're leaving. They're walking to a small town not far from Jerusalem, Emmaus. Emmaus was a place of a mineral spring reputed to be a place of healing. And so these two followers of Jesus are talking amongst themselves about what just happened, how to make sense of it, what does it mean. I imagine them really kind of walking rather briskly. I would be. I'd want out of Jerusalem really, really quickly. And I can also imagine them in some grief, trying to understand what just happened and why. Why the Romans took someone of peace and put them through that experience. And they're walking along and the stranger shows up in their midst. The stranger is walking along and ask them what they're talking about. And they say, can you be the only one that doesn't know what happened this week? Did you miss it? Where were you? And the stranger begins to tell them all the law and the prophets and explain to them everything that happened and why. And they reach Emmaus, and the stranger sits with them for dinner. They sit down beside the road to eat. Pull out their lunches from the robes, as would be habit for the time. And as he breaks bread and gives thanks, they recognize him and he disappears. I had an interesting weekend. I had a great conversation with a couple of other ministers in town. And it was a very lengthy conversation. One of us stayed in the parking lot a good 2 hours talking. And the thrust of their conversation with me was, what is it you believe? What is it Unity believes? And I shared with them what I've shared in this room, and that is, I'm not here to give you one more thing to believe. I don't care what you believe. We can sit and we can talk all day about what we believe and never convince anybody of anything. In fact, sitting around talking about what it is you believe often leads more to conflict and separation than it does to peace. Please don't take anything that I believe and make it your own. It won't fit you well. Here's what I shared with them. My continual prayer is not that people in my congregation believe anything. My prayer is they experience everything. It's not about what you believe, it's about what you experience. When we talk about God being love, equally permanently available to everyone, when we talk about a view of the universe where this love that intended you and created you on purpose pursues you desperately trying to get your attention, yelling and screaming, wanting you to stop long enough to listen. This love written about by the Song of Solomon, by Rumi, by the prophets of old, by the writers of the New Testament, this love that they so often put in very erotic language to us Puritans, it's really embarrassing.